Hello and welcome to Before the Buzzer. Today I'll be talking about my NHL Standings Predictions. But first, please like, comment, share, and subscribe as it would be very helpful in growing this channel. Alright, let's get into it. First, we're going to start off in the Pacific Division, and in 8th place, the Anaheim Ducks. Unfortunately, the Anaheim Ducks didn't have that great of an off-season. They drafted McTavish, but I don't expect him to make the lineup immediately. The re-signing of Getzlaf is good, but he isn't what he used to be. I do, however, expect to be proven wrong by the young talent of Zegras and Drysdale, but I don't know how well they'll play this year, so I'm putting them here at 8th place for now. In 7th place in the Pacific, I have the San Jose Sharks. They didn't do too much this offseason, besides the additions of Aiden Hill and a few depth pieces, such as Andrew Cogliano and Nick Bonino. Their draft was good, as William Eklund could be the absolute steal of the draft. However, I think he needs time to develop first before he makes an NHL lineup. Their team should have been so good when Carlson went to San Jose, but I just haven't seen much from him since. And that's why I have them 7th in the Pacific. In 6th place in the Pacific, I have the LA Kings. They had a great offseason with some great additions. Deneau as a second-line center behind Kopitar, those two will be impossible to score on. Arvidsson is a great addition to the wing, and they still have some young guys coming up, such as Turcotte and Byfield. However, their defense isn't great. Besides Doughty, I don't see much there, and that's what frightens me. In 5th place in the Pacific, I have the Calgary Flames. Unfortunately, they didn't really do much this offseason, and that kind of seems to be a trend for this team. Gaudreau and Chuck could be absolutely stars, but they could also have another poor year, like normal. Goaltending seems to be an issue for this team, and they still haven't really improved on it. This team could be great, but to me, I feel like they won't be, and that's why I have them here. In 4th in the Pacific, I have the Seattle Kraken. They had a great free agency, but I thought that the expansion draft was a little lackluster. They had some great additions such as Grubauer and Schwartz, and I think with that could push them into the 4th place and grab a wild card spot there, though I don't expect them to do as well as Vegas in their first season. In 3rd place in the Pacific, I have the Vancouver Canucks. Unfortunately, with the virus plaguing their season last year, they couldn't do much last year, and that I feel like contributes to why they flopped last year. If they can re-sign Pettersson and Hughes, which I'm assuming they will soon, then I think they could get to 3rd here in the Pacific. They had some great additions this offseason with Ekman Larsson and Connor Garland, and that could contribute to their success in Vancouver, and I expect them to get the 3rd spot in the Pacific. I see the 2nd place in the Pacific Division going to the Edmonton Oilers. They had a great offseason with small improvements all over the lineup, and that's exactly what they need. Hyman's a good top winger for McDavid, and I see Hyman having a career year. And McDavid will only get better after the year he just had last year. Their goaltending could be better, but defense is still pretty good. And with Drysdale as your second-line center, that's got to be the best 1-2 punch in all of the NHL. And with only one team left to talk about, the Vegas Golden Knights are 1st in the Pacific. They didn't really do too much this offseason, but still, no one else in this division can compete with these guys. Their defense is awesome, their goaltending is awesome, and they have some of the best wingers in the entire NHL. Their center core could improve, but still, this team will be hard to compete with. Now that we've finished up the Pacific Division, let's move on to the Central Division. In the last place in the Central Division, I have the Arizona Coyotes. They're clearly rebuilding, and that shows in the acquisition of the 9th overall pick from the Vancouver Canucks this offseason. Jacob Chychrun, though, is the one light in the dark spot in this team, but I don't see him bringing the team all the way back to the playoffs all on his own. Keller and Kessel are good, but I haven't seen enough from them to say that they're going to actually make that big of a difference this season, and that's why I have them last in the Central. In 7th place in the Central, I have the Dallas Stars. They didn't really do much this offseason, besides adding Ryan Suter, who's a great veteran presence to have on the defense, but isn't enough to make him go back into the playoffs. Tyler Seguin just got back from a bad injury, so that could really help the team. However, he is still quite injury prone. Jamie Benn isn't as good as he used to, and still won't be enough to get this team back into the playoffs. I do not see them making it into the playoffs. In 6th in the Central, I have the Minnesota Wild. They didn't really do much this offseason besides adding John Merrill and Alex Goligoski as depth defensemen. And the contract negotiations with Kirill Kaprizov are still ongoing, and that drama could flow into the next season. They didn't really do much to make their team much better than last year, so I have them 6th in the Central. In 5th place in the Central, I have the Nashville Predators. The Nashville Predators made some off-season moves, but it seems like they're going more in a rebuilding phase, trading Ryan Ellis for Nolan Patrick and Philip Myers. But they also traded Victor Arvidsson for a second-round pick to the LA Kings, so it's clear that this team is going into a rebuilding phase. So that's why I have them 5th in the Central. In 4th place in the Central, I have the St. Louis Blues. Their only huge loss this offseason was Jaden Schwartz, and they made up for it with the acquisition of Pavel Buchnevich and Brandon Saad. Their defense is strong with Krug and Parayko, but I'm not a huge fan of Jordan Binnington, and that's why I have to rank them 4th in the Central. 3rd place in the Central, I have Chicago Blackhawks. Man, did this team get better over the offseason. Trading Duncan Keith not only cleared cap space, but got Caleb Jones in a 3rd-round pick. That's not it, though. They later trade for Seth Jones, and now the brother duo will play on the same team together. But they also got the just Vezina winning trophy winner, Marc-Andre Fleury, for near nothing. But that's not it. They got more depth by acquiring Gaudette and Johnson. This team will be great this year. Coming in 2nd in the Central, I have the Winnipeg Jets. They improved on their biggest weaknesses, depth and defense. They added Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt, which improves on their defense a ton. Now, Connor Hellebuyck finally has a defense to play in front of him. If that's not it, they already have some stars in their lineup such as Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, Pierre-Luc Dubois. This team could be great this upcoming season. Coming in at number 1 in the Central, I have the Colorado Avalanche. Their team is amazing. Forwards and defense, goaltending, even after losing Philip Grubauer, their goaltending still is amazing with Darcy Kemper starting for them. This team will make a run for the playoffs, and I think will make a run for the Cup. Now, heading in to the Metro Division. This division might be one of the hardest to predict. There are so many good teams that could make the playoffs. This might be the best division in all of the NHL. Coming in at 8th place in the Metro, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets. This team seems to be totally unable to hang on to players, losing so many players over the offseason every single year. It's Seth Jones this year, who is it next year? This team will definitely go last in the Metro. Coming in at 7th in the Metro, I have the Philadelphia Flyers. This one was a hard one to predict. They had such a horrible season last year, but they always have that back and forth. They made some great acquisitions, including Ryan Ellis and Rasmus Ristolainen. But if Carter Hart plays like he did last year, then I don't see them making it much further. Coming in at number 6, I have the New York Rangers. They're a great young team, who could be great soon, but right now I don't think they're quite there yet. With a coaching change of Gerard Gallant, I think that Alexis Lafreniere could thrive in that new environment. But right now, he has to take some pretty big steps to show that. Coming in at number 5 in the Metro, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins. Crosby and Malkin are getting up there in age, and I don't know if they can still compete as much as they could before. Letang, also getting up there in age. I don't know how well he'll do this season. Goaltending can be an issue for this team, but we'll have to see, as this team could totally prove me wrong. Coming in at number 4 in the Metro, I have the New Jersey Devils. They're also a great young team. Heischer and Hughes will be great for them soon. I don't know if they're quite there, but they're close. They made some great acquisitions this offseason, Hamilton being the most notable. Ty Smith will be great for them soon, and I think that they can clinch a wild card spot this year. Coming in at number 3 in the Metro, I have the Washington Capitals. Unfortunately, Evgeny Kuznetsov might not be up there this year with Ovechkin, but with Backstrom, Ovechkin still has that number 1 playmaker to play with. John Carlson is still a Norris-level defenseman. I think that they'll be able to make the playoffs this year, and I think they'll have a great season. Coming in at number 2 in the Metro, I have the Carolina Hurricanes. Unfortunately, they lost Dougie Hamilton over the offseason, but their top 6 is absolutely amazing. I don't know what they're planning on doing with all their young centers, but this team will be good for a while. At first in the Metro, I have the New York Islanders. We all saw how they played against Tampa this year in the playoffs. This team is great. They're gritty, they're big, they've got skill, and their coaching is impeccable. This team will do great this year, and I won't be surprised if they get a Stanley Cup anytime soon. Next up, we have the Atlantic Division. This division is once again one quite hard to predict. It's filled with a ton of skilled teams that could compete for the playoffs. Coming in at 8th in the Atlantic, I have the Buffalo Sabres. We all saw this coming. I don't think I have to say any more than that. Coming in at number 7 in the Atlantic, I have the Detroit Red Wings. This team is almost there. They're still young, and they've got some great young stars. I think that Mort Seider could be one of the biggest difference maker for this team, and I think that he could even get a run for the Calder. Coming in at number 6 in the Atlantic, I have the Ottawa Senators. Once again, this is a great young team that's on the verge of being a playoff contender. Ottawa Senators will be a huge pest to play this season. They will take a lot of wins from other teams. They are so close, but they're still young and will make it soon. Coming in at number 5 in the Atlantic, I have the Montreal Canadiens. Okay, so this one hurts a little bit. The Habs will not make the playoffs. Price is getting older. He will not be better than he was last year. If he can play as well as he did in the playoffs last year, I'll be ecstatic. But I don't see that happening. I think Caulfield is the best player to bet on for the Calder, and I think this team will be great soon, but I don't think they'll make the playoffs this year. Coming in at 4th in the Atlantic, I have the Florida Panthers. This team took some steps forward this offseason. I think that Spencer Knight will be their starter of the future for a long, long time. That Bobrovsky contract is looking a little worse now. But still, they've got some extra guys. They added Sam Reinhart, who could be great for this team. I think this team will make the playoffs. Coming in at 3rd in the Atlantic, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Their team is full of stars, with Matthews, Marner, Tavares, all of them. This team will be an awesome team to watch in the regular season. But just going with the trend over the past few years, I would say that we won't see them in the playoffs for too long. Number 2 in the Atlantic, I have the Boston Bruins. They had a great offseason, adding a lot of depth pieces. And Linus Ullmark is a great replacement for Tuukka Rask. My one issue I have with these guys is some of their ages. Patrice Bergeron is quite up there in age, and his contract is a bit of an uncertainty. But for now, these guys will be fine. They'll make 2nd in the Atlantic, just to knock the Leafs out in the first round again. Coming in at number 1 in the Atlantic, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning. Yeah, they lost quite a few key pieces in the offseason, but I think that this team is still great. With Kucherov, Point, and Stamkos leading these guys through, I think that the Tampa Bay Lightning could go for a three-peat. Thanks for sticking around for so long, and thanks for watching. I ask that you please like, comment, and subscribe. Comment any video ideas or suggestions that you have for me. Thanks so much. Goodbye.